on the nuclear issue and, as he said, other regional issues. And I also asked him about direct bilateral issues with the United States. I think the fact that he says he has that authority is the key issue. And President Obama today named Secretary of State Kerry, and the Iranians have already named their Foreign Minister Javad Zarif, American-educated, well-known to many American officials, as the key negotiators on these very issues.
So to you, that's the most significant thing you heard today in this interview, that he has the authority to negotiate?
Well, look, I think that is a big deal because I've been here before. I interviewed the then reformed President Khatami many, many years ago. He said many of the same things. He was willing to do the same things. The difference was, and he's admitted it and now written about it, that he didn't have the backing of the Supreme Leader nor the consensus. So I do believe that that is a very big development, and just the meeting between Secretaries Kerry and Foreign Minister Zarif will be a change, a big deal. It hasn't happened at that level. The other things he said was he was willing to take serious steps to build confidence. I pressed him on the issue of confidence. There's no confidence in what Iran says it's doing with its nuclear program. On the issue of full transparency, we went through the kind of framework that he might see as a deal. Obviously, they want sanctions lifted and all of that. And he was very forthcoming on the issue of tweeting, where Iranians don't have access, as you know, to social media. He said he wanted to make sure they did have it. On human rights, he wanted to make sure they had more ability. So I think there were a lot of new things I heard today.
And I don't want to play more of that, but Mike, first, do you buy that explanation about the meeting? I mean, you never thought meeting was wise between Obama and Rouhani.
No, I don't buy the explanation. Clearly, the Supreme Leader has given Rouhani some rope to play, and we need to investigate how far he can play. But I think we see already there are limits. This morning in the Kayhan newspaper, the official mouthpiece of the regime, it was said that Rouhani should not shake the president's hand, and then he didn't do it. And I think it's also a little bit of a power game. They sense that we're running after them, and they're going to play hard to get.
David, does it sound like the U.S. had the rug pulled out from underneath it, or I mean, does it make the U.S. look bad for offering, or good for offering?
I think it made the U.S. look a little clumsy in its diplomacy, and I think it was a little embarrassing when the leader of the most powerful nation on earth was willing to meet, and somebody else says basically snubs him. I think that's it's an embarrassing moment, but I think it's small. To go back to Christian's point, I think it's small, Anderson, compared to the larger picture that we see here, and may ultimately be just a footnote. The larger picture is that the Obama administration actually deserves credit, along with the Bush administration, in bringing these sanctions to bear, and that's what's bringing President Rouhani to the table.
These sanctions have had teeth.
They clearly have had teeth. They've been having teeth for a while. I mean, their revenue from oil now is half of what it had been before the sanctions really started biting. They've got the highest inflation rate in 145 countries around the world, and it's been going up rapidly here in the last few months. They're under a lot of pressure at home from people in the streets. Now, we saw, as Christian also said, we saw back in the Clinton years with Khatami, we saw a similar set of overtures. Bill Clinton, as president, got quite enthusiastic about pursuing it, and then they really pulled back. They really pulled the rug out on him when he went, and the whole thing fell apart. And I think that's what's giving all of us a lot of caution about interpreting this.
Hey, Christian, I want to play your exchange that you talked about with Rouhani about the nuclear issue, because it's difficult to exactly understand what he's willing to do in a concrete way to establish confidence. Let's listen.
In broad, what is it that you're willing to do to inspire confidence? I know I've asked you this already, but I don't hear you saying, maybe I don't understand, but clearly what people want is full transparency. So is Iran, yes or no, willing to give that level of confidence that there is no doubt that what you say you're doing, you're actually doing?
Over 40 countries have enrichment capacities, and many of them have ongoing enrichment operations. What is the difference between Iran and those countries? Now, there are countries that have not even accepted the NPT or even agreed to work with the IAEA, but Iran has accepted and is committed to the NPT. Iran has accepted and committed itself to the Safeguards Agreement. All of its activities are under the supervision of the IAEA.
He's saying also, Christian, to you that there are, cameras all over the place, that they haven't deviated, that the IAEA is happy with the way things are in Iran. But that's simply not accurate.
Well, it is and it isn't. There are cameras and there are inspectors, and Iran is cooperating under the strict terms of the IAEA and the NPT, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. What people want to know is whether the Iranians are willing to go over and above to give even more transparency. And so that is what I was trying to get at. Now, many of his aides say that, yes, Iran is willing to do that. But he obviously wasn't going to negotiate with me in an interview. I pushed him on 20% enrichment and capacity. He wouldn't bite on that. He wouldn't bite on the Fordo plant, which is near Qom, the underground plant that everybody talked about, which has the more advanced centrifuges. But what I did find interesting was that he did seem to indicate that there is another issue that we all know about, and that is a heavy water reactor called Arak at Arak, and many people are worried that that could be used for plutonium extraction. That's another way, if it was so desired, to go towards a weapon. And that may be coming online, or is designed to come online in the spring. He indicated that there was flexibility to putting that on the table. I thought that was quite interesting, because that was where he indicated there may be some bargaining point. And to be honest with you, that's the thing that many people are worried about in terms of a point of no return.
Mike, do you buy the explanation from Rouhani?
I thought, David's point that that the symbolism today of them snubbing us as a small one was a good one, but I think it's symbolic of the danger that we have here, which is that we are perceived as running after them, and we have to be careful about our own exuberance. Because if we get involved in a negotiation with them, and they immediately turn around and they say, you know what, to continue this negotiation, you're going to have to start lifting sanctions, we're going to find ourselves very quickly making concessions to them in return for continuation of process. And it's extremely dangerous, I think.
Yeah, we're going to have more of Christian's interview.
Anderson?
Yeah, go ahead, Christian.
Well, that issue is the real crux of it. I mean, there has to be, according to the Iranians, some kind of reciprocity, proportional reciprocity. If we give you this, then you have to give us that, and on until the situation is over. And I think certainly if the US and the West doesn't do that, according to the Iranians, that's going to be a deal breaker, and this window is going to close. Basically, he has to go back with something to show for what they're doing. And I'm not sure that the U.S. is running after them. They look more like they are eager to do this. As you say, the sanctions are hurting.
David, critics of the idea of negotiating will say that's preconditions to sit down. You don't do
absolutely.
that.
And I do think that President Obama's got his own, pressures back home, and that's going to be, he's going to be under enormous pressure from both parties and from experts not to make concessions early.
Right.
And he's got a history when he negotiates of sometimes making a preemptory concession.
We're going to talk about this again with Christian and others at that.